The great chamber floated in the darkness of space, orbiting a dying star that pulsed with strange light. Inside, 15 different alien species sat in a circle, each representing their civilization among the stars. They called themselves the Galactic Council, and for 300 years they had decided the fate of thousands of worlds. Jinwoo stood at the center of the chamber, his dark eyes calm as he faced the assembled aliens. He wore the simple gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic service, with no medals or decorations. Humans rarely bothered with such displays. Around him, the aliens whispered and clicked and hummed in their various languages, their translator devices converting everything into a muddy chorus of sound. Chancellor Vornis rose from his seat, his reptilian body covered in ceremonial scales that glittered under the chamber lights. He was old, even by his species' standards, and he carried the arrogance of someone who had never been told no. "Ambassador Jinwoo," Vornis said, his voice dripping with false courtesy, "the Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's position in our alliance." Jinwoo said nothing. He simply waited, his hands clasped behind his back. He had expected this moment for months now. The signs had been clear to anyone who cared to look. Vornis continued, clearly enjoying himself. "For 127 years, humanity has been a member of this council. You have contributed much to our shared prosperity. Your technologies have improved life across the galaxy. For this, we are grateful." The word grateful sounded wrong coming from Vornis. Jinwoo noticed that several other council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. At least some of them had the decency to feel shame for what was coming. "However," Vornis said, and there it was. "The council has become concerned about the imbalance created by human advancement. Your people control too much. Your colonies expand too quickly. Your influence grows too strong. This threatens the equality that our alliance was built upon." Jinwoo almost smiled. Equality. They spoke of equality while sitting in stations that humans had built, breathing air that human processors had purified, protected by defense systems that human engineers had designed. The galaxy had become so dependent on human innovation that most species no longer remembered how to maintain their own infrastructure. "Therefore," Vornis announced, "the Council has passed the equity mandate. All human colonial expansion is frozen immediately. All human technologies must be shared freely with all Council members, with full technical specifications and training provided at no cost. Additionally, a special tax will be levied on all human worlds to fund development programs for less advanced species. These measures will ensure fairness for all." The chamber fell silent. Everyone waited for Jinwoo's response. They expected anger, perhaps, or negotiation. Humans were known for their diplomatic nature, their endless patience, their willingness to compromise. Jinwoo looked around the chamber slowly, meeting the eyes of each council member in turn. Some looked away. Others stared back with challenge or contempt. He saw Kelrath, the insectoid trade minister, practically vibrating with greedy anticipation. He saw Thex, the avian merchant prince, already calculating profits. He saw a few faces that showed regret, but not enough to have voted against the mandate. "I see," Jinwoo said quietly. "The Council wishes to take everything humanity has built and offers nothing in return. You call this equity?" "We offer you the privilege of membership," Vornis said sharply. "We offer you protection under Council law. We offer you access to our markets and our knowledge." "Your markets that run on our currency," Jinwoo replied, his voice still calm. "Your protection that relies on our defense systems. Your knowledge that has not advanced in 200 years while humanity has revolutionized faster than light travel. Medical science and energy production." Several council members hissed or growled at this. Truth was often unwelcome in political chambers. Jinwoo raised his hand for silence. "I am not here to argue. You have made your decision. Now I will make mine." He pulled out a small device from his pocket, a simple communicator. He pressed a button, and across the galaxy on 200 human worlds, messages began to transmit. Instructions that had been prepared months ago, waiting for this exact moment. "Humanity abstains," Jinwoo said clearly. "Effective immediately, we withdraw from the Galactic Council. We will honor all existing private contracts until their completion, but we will engage in no new agreements. All Council-related infrastructure will be returned to Council control within 6 months. We wish you well." The chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens shouted in a dozen languages, their voices overlapping into noise. Vornis slammed his fist on his desk, demanding order. Kelrath buzzed frantically, trying to understand what had just happened. You cannot simply leave, Vornis roared. You have obligations, responsibilities. The galaxy needs human technology. Then perhaps, Jinwu said softly, you should have treated us with respect instead of contempt. Perhaps you should have offered partnership instead of exploitation. Perhaps you should have remembered that generosity is a gift, not a right. He turned to leave, his footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. If you leave, Vornis threatened, we will impose sanctions. We will blockade your worlds. We will force you to comply. Jinwu stopped at the door. He looked back over his shoulder, and for the first time his calm expression showed something else. Not anger, not fear. Something worse, pity. You are welcome to try, he said. But ask yourself this, Chancellor. Who maintains your weapons? Who powers your ships? Who keeps your stations from falling into the void? You have become so used to humans doing everything that you have forgotten how to survive on your own. You are about to remember. He left the chamber. Behind him, the council descended into argument and panic. They threatened. They demanded. They pleaded. But Jinwu did not look back. On the human ship waiting outside the station, Minji stood at the communications console, coordinating with human colonies across the galaxy. She was a small woman with graying hair, but her fingers moved across the controls with practiced precision. She had spent 30 years building and maintaining the Terra network, the vast infrastructure that connected human civilization across the stars. Now she was going to dismantle it all. Confirmation from all sectors, she reported as Jinwu entered the bridge. Evacuation protocols are active. We estimate 6 months for complete withdrawal. Captain Hyun stood at the viewport watching the council station grow smaller in the distance. He was a military man, broad-shouldered and quiet, with the eyes of someone who had seen war and hoped never to see it again. They will try to stop us, he said. Not now, perhaps. But when they realize what they are losing, they will panic. Let them, Jinwu replied, settling into his chair with a heavy sigh. We gave them every chance. We offered friendship, partnership, mutual growth. They chose to see us as resources to be exploited. Now they will learn what the galaxy looks like without human help. Minji turned from her console. Do you think they will understand? Do you think they will realize their mistake? Jinwu closed his eyes, suddenly looking very tired. Eventually. But by then it will be far too late. The human ship turned away from the council station and jumped into faster-than-light travel, heading toward home. Behind them, the lights of the council chamber flickered and dimmed as human-maintained power systems began their programmed shutdown sequence. The departure had begun, quietly, methodically, without drama or declaration. The galaxy had no idea what was coming, but it would learn soon enough. 3 months had passed since Jinwu walked out of the council chamber, and the galaxy was beginning to understand that something was very wrong. Sora stood in the research laboratory on Kepler Station, watching her team pack up decades of work into cargo containers. She was young for a chief scientist, barely 40 with tired eyes that had spent too many nights staring at data screens. Around her, researchers carefully dismantled equipment that had cured diseases the galaxy had suffered from for thousands of years. The nanite fabricators are ready for transport, her assistant reported. Should we leave the instruction manuals for the station staff? Sora shook her head. They would not understand them. The technology is too advanced. Just pack everything. She walked to the window and looked out at the alien city below. Kepler Station orbited a world inhabited by the Vryn, a gentle species of blue-skinned humanoids. For 60 years, humans had worked alongside them, sharing knowledge and building a research center that had become famous across the galaxy. The Vryn had learned much, but they had never quite grasped the deeper principles of human science. They had been content to use what humans created without understanding how it worked. Now they would pay the price for that contentment. On the other side of the galaxy, Daehyun supervised the evacuation of New Seoul, a human colony on the edge of council space. He was an administrator, good with numbers and logistics, and right now those skills were being pushed to their limit. 2 million humans called New Seoul home, and all of them needed to be moved within 3 months. The last transport leaves in 6 hours, his deputy informed him. We are on schedule, but barely. Daehyun nodded, checking his tablet. The elderly and children had already been evacuated. Now came the final wave, mostly adults who had stayed behind to help with the shutdown procedures. In 6 hours, New Seoul would be empty of humans for the first time in 100 years. "What about the fusion reactor?" he asked. "The one powering the Vryn settlement in the southern hemisphere? Scheduled for deactivation in 5 hours. We left them a basic fission plant to replace it, but it will only provide about 20% of their current power." Daehyun felt a pang of guilt. The Vryn in the southern settlement had been good neighbors. They had traded fairly, respected boundaries, and never demanded more than was offered. But the evacuation order was absolute. All human technology had to be removed or shut down. "No exceptions. Leave them extra fuel," he said quietly, "and triple-check that the fission plant is stable. They do not deserve to suffer because of the Council's stupidity." Across the galaxy, the pattern repeated on 200 worlds. Humans packed up and left, taking with them the technologies that had become woven into the fabric of galactic civilization. Quantum reactors went dark. Medical facilities closed their doors. Atmospheric processors shut down. Agricultural systems stopped producing. The aliens noticed, of course. At first they were simply confused, then annoyed, then concerned, then frightened. Merchant Thex watched his fortune evaporate in real time. He had built a trading empire on the human currency standard, using human-designed ships to travel human-maintained space lanes between human-established trade stations. In 3 months, all of it simply vanished. The space lanes went dark as human navigation beacons shut down. The trade stations closed as human staff evacuated. The ships broke down without human maintenance crews to repair them. And the human currency, backed by human economic stability, became worthless as humanity withdrew from galactic markets. Thex stood in his office on Nexus Station, staring at screens full of red numbers. Bankruptcy, complete and total bankruptcy. Everything he had built over a lifetime, gone. He tried to contact human trading partners, offering double fees, triple fees, whatever they wanted. His messages went unanswered. He tried to hire human technicians to maintain his ships. They politely declined, citing the evacuation order. He tried to appeal to the Council for intervention. The Council had problems of their own. Kelrath sat in his chambers, surrounded by reports of cascading failures. The Trade Ministry was supposed to manage galactic commerce, but galactic commerce had been built on human foundations. Now those foundations were crumbling, and Kelrath had no idea how to stop it. Power grids were failing on 17 worlds. Hospital systems were shutting down on 32 more. Food production was dropping catastrophically across the entire Council space, and the humans simply refused to respond to any communication. He had tried everything. Official diplomatic channels, personal appeals, threats of legal action, promises of better terms. Nothing worked. The humans had gone completely silent. They answered no messages, accepted no calls, and attended no meetings. They simply continued their methodical withdrawal, polite but absolutely inflexible. In desperation, Kelrath traveled to the human embassy on Nexus Station, the largest human facility outside of Earth itself. Surely there would be someone there who would listen to reason, someone who would understand that the galaxy needed them. The embassy was empty. Kelrath walked through halls that had once buzzed with activity. His footsteps echoed in the silence. Office doors stood open, revealing vacant rooms with empty desks. The walls still displayed artwork from Earth, beautiful paintings of oceans and mountains and cities. But the people were gone. In the main reception hall, he found a single holographic terminal still active. It displayed a message on repeat, and Kelrath recognized the woman in the recording. Minji, the chief engineer of the Terra network. She looked tired but determined. "This message is for all council members and affiliated parties," her image said. "As of today, humanity has completed its withdrawal from all council-related infrastructure projects. All technological support contracts are hereby terminated. All maintenance agreements are void. All training programs are concluded. The responsibility for maintaining galactic infrastructure now returns to the Council and its member species. We have provided documentation and instruction manuals for all systems we are leaving behind. We wish you success in your future endeavors. This embassy is now closed." The message looped back to the beginning. Kelrath watched it 3 more times, hoping to find some hint of negotiation, some opening for discussion. There was none. The message was final. He left the embassy and returned to his ship, feeling old and frightened in a way he had not felt since childhood. The galaxy was breaking, and he had no idea how to fix it. On Earth, in the capital city of Geneva, Jinwoo sat in a meeting with the human government. They watched reports from across the galaxy. monitoring the growing chaos. Some of them looked troubled by what they saw. "People are suffering," one representative said. "Hospitals are shutting down. Children are dying of diseases we could cure easily. Should we not offer humanitarian aid?" "No," Jinwoo replied firmly. "We offered help for over a century. We shared our knowledge freely. We asked only for respect and fair treatment. Instead, they chose to exploit us, to take everything and give nothing back. This is the consequence of that choice." "But innocent people will die," the representative persisted. Minji, sitting beside Jinwoo, spoke up. "Innocent people die every day across the galaxy for lack of resources that the Council hoards. Where was the Council's compassion when human colonies were taxed into poverty to fund their bureaucracy? Where was their concern when they demanded we give away a century of research for free? They made their choice. Now they must live with it." The meeting continued late into the night, but the decision remained unchanged. Humanity would complete its withdrawal. There would be no rescue. No salvation. The galaxy would have to save itself. Captain Hyun's fleet escorted the last human transports out of Council space. They flew in formation, shields up, weapons ready. Some alien factions, desperate and angry, had already begun attacking human ships, trying to take by force what they could no longer get by trade. Hyun watched his tactical display as a group of pirate vessels approached. They were poorly organized, flying outdated ships with mismatched weapons. They probably thought the humans would be easy targets. They were wrong. The human defense fleet moved with precision, their advanced weapon systems turning the pirates into debris within seconds. Hyun took no pleasure in it, but he would not allow his people to be harmed. Not when they were so close to home. "All transports accounted for," his tactical officer reported. "We will cross into human space in 3 hours." "Good," Hyun replied. "Maintain alert status until then." He looked at the starfield ahead, toward the region of space that humanity had claimed as their own, away from the Council and its politics. Out there, human colonies were building something new. Something better. Something that belonged to them alone. Behind them, the galaxy descended into chaos, and the humans did not look back. 8 months after humanity's departure, the galaxy was dying. Sunmi stood in the control room of a failing life support station on a remote world called Haven. The name was ironic now. There was nothing safe about this place anymore. Warning lights blinked red across every console, and the air had a metallic taste that meant the filtration systems were breaking down. Around her, a group of Vryn technicians watched with desperate eyes as she tried to explain how to repair the atmospheric processor. She had stayed behind specifically to help them, delaying her own evacuation despite orders to leave. These people had done nothing wrong. They were refugees who had settled here with human help, building a new life on a world that would have been uninhabitable without human technology. Now that technology was failing, and Sunmi was the only human left who knew how to fix it. "You need to replace the quantum coupling here," she explained, pointing to a complex assembly of components that glowed with a faint blue light. "But you have to recalibrate the harmonic resonance first, or the whole system will cascade into failure." The lead technician, an elderly Vryn named Tellus, shook his head slowly. "We do not understand. The concepts you describe are beyond our knowledge." "Can you not repair it yourself?" Sunmi felt her heart break a little. "I can repair it today. Maybe tomorrow. But what happens next week when it breaks again? What happens next year? I cannot stay here forever, and my people are not coming back." She had spent 6 weeks trying to teach them. She had simplified the concepts as much as possible, created detailed manuals with pictures and diagrams, and walked them through every procedure step by step. But the technology was simply too advanced. It was like trying to teach medieval farmers how to repair a nuclear reactor. "There must be something," Tellus pleaded. "Some way to keep the systems running." Sunmi pulled up a diagnostic screen, her fingers moving across the controls with practiced ease. The processor was designed to run for 50 years with minimal maintenance, assuming regular calibration by someone who understood quantum mechanics. Without that expertise, it might last another 2 years, maybe 3 if they were lucky. After that, the atmosphere would slowly turn toxic. The 30,000 Vryn living on Haven would have to evacuate, but evacuate to where? The galaxy was collapsing. Refugee ships floated in space with nowhere to dock, nowhere to refuel, nowhere to go. "I will do what I can," she said finally. "I will write down everything I know. I will make it as simple as possible. But you need to understand something. She turned to face them directly. This technology was never meant to be used without understanding it. My people spent centuries developing the knowledge needed to create it. You cannot learn that in a few weeks. I am sorry, but I am telling you the truth. When I leave, you will be on your own. She worked for 3 more days making repairs and writing instructions. On the 4th day, a human transport ship arrived to take her away. She boarded with tears in her eyes, leaving behind people she had grown to care about. People who would probably not survive the next 5 years. As the ship lifted off, she looked down at Haven growing smaller below. She thought about the children she had met there, laughing and playing, unaware of the doom hanging over their heads. She thought about Tellus and his desperate hope that somehow everything would be okay. It would not be okay. Not for them. Not for most of the galaxy. Across Council space, the pattern repeated endlessly. Systems failed. Populations panicked. Governments collapsed. Captain Hyun received distress calls every hour. Ships stranded without fuel. Stations losing life support. Colonies facing starvation. All of them begging for human help. All of them offering payment, trade deals, political concessions, anything and everything humans might want. Hyun deleted the messages without responding. His orders were clear. Humanity was finished with the galaxy. There would be no rescue missions. No aid convoys. No last-minute salvation. Some of his crew struggled with this. They were good people who wanted to help. But Hyun was old enough to remember the early days of human expansion, when his people had been weak and desperate. He remembered asking the Council for help when Earth's colonies faced disaster, and being told that assistance required payment humanity could not afford. He remembered watching human children die because Council members refused to share medical technology without extracting crushing concessions first. Now the situation was reversed, and Hyun felt no guilt about staying silent. The galaxy had taught humanity a hard lesson about self-reliance. Now it was their turn to learn. Chancellor Vornis stood in what remained of the Council chamber. Half the member species had withdrawn or collapsed. The chamber itself was falling apart, its systems failing without human maintenance. The lights flickered. The temperature control was broken. The gravity generator sometimes cut out without warning. Vornis had aged decades in 8 months. His scales had lost their luster. His eyes were sunken and tired. He broadcast from the dying chamber, trying to rally the remnant civilizations, trying to maintain order in a galaxy descending into chaos. "We must unite," he declared, his voice lacking its former confidence. "We must pool our resources and our knowledge. Together we can overcome this crisis. Together we can rebuild what has been lost." But even as he spoke, he knew it was a lie. They had nothing to pool. Human technology had been so superior, so advanced, that most species had simply stopped developing their own. Why invest in research when humans would share their innovations freely? Why maintain engineering programs when human technicians were available for hire? Now those humans were gone, and the galaxy discovered it had forgotten how to build, how to innovate, how to survive. A transmission came through from one of Vornis's own worlds. The message was brief and terrible. The main city had lost power 3 days ago. The backup generators had failed. Without climate control, temperatures had plunged. 15,000 dead, 20,000 more critically ill. Could the Council send aid? Vornis closed his eyes. There was no aid to send. The Council had nothing left to give. He thought about Jinwoo's final words, warning that the galaxy had forgotten how to survive without human help. At the time, Vornis had dismissed it as empty threats. Now he understood. It had not been a threat. It had been a prophecy. Historian June sat in a quiet office on Mars documenting everything. She was part of a team dedicated to recording humanity's exodus and the galaxy's response. Future generations would need to understand what had happened, why humanity had left, what the cost had been. She reviewed transmissions from across Council space. Most were pleas for help. Some were angry demands. A few were threats, empty promises of military action against humanity if they did not return immediately. Those made her laugh bitterly. Military action with what ships? Powered by what reactors? Maintained by what engineers? The Council's military had depended on human technology just as much as everything else. Their fleets were breaking down, unable to travel far or fight effectively. But some transmissions were different. Some showed understanding, however late. She found a recording from a council member named Ralthar, a crystalline being who had studied human history as a hobby. He spoke to an empty chamber, his words meant for the historical record rather than any living audience. "We had everything," Ralthar said, his voice resonating with harmonics of sorrow. "The humans gave us medicine that eliminated suffering, energy that ended scarcity, technology that opened the stars. They asked so little in return. Just respect, just fair treatment, just basic reciprocity." He paused, his crystalline form refracting light into rainbow patterns. "Instead, we grew jealous. We resented their success. We convinced ourselves they owed us their gifts. We took and took and took, and when they finally said no more, we called them selfish. We called them cruel. We learned nothing from our own history, nothing from the countless civilizations that have fallen to pride and greed." Another pause, longer this time. "The humans did not destroy us. We destroyed ourselves. They merely stopped preventing our self-destruction. And now we face the consequences of our arrogance. May whatever species survive this catastrophe remember our failure. May they learn what we refuse to learn, that kindness is not weakness, that generosity is not obligation, that those who give deserve gratitude, not contempt." The recording ended. June saved it carefully. Of all the transmissions she had reviewed, this one came closest to understanding the truth. On Earth, Minji deactivated the last connection to the Galactic Communication Network. It was a symbolic gesture more than a practical one. Humanity had been functionally isolated for months now. But this made it official. The Terra network, which had connected human civilization to the wider galaxy for over a century, was now completely withdrawn. She felt a mix of emotions: relief that the exodus was complete, sadness for what might have been, and underneath it all a quiet anger that it had come to this. She thought about the thousands of engineers she had trained over the years. Good people who had built wonders across the stars, who had solved impossible problems and helped countless alien civilizations thrive. All of that expertise, all of that goodwill wasted because the galaxy could not overcome its own pride. "It is done," she reported to Jinwoo. "We are completely dark to council space now." Jinwoo nodded slowly. "How many did we lose?" 43 people. Accidents during evacuation, mostly. 3 killed by pirates. 1 died teaching aliens how to maintain their life support. Stayed too long and could not evacuate in time. Each loss was a tragedy. But 43 out of 200 million evacuated was remarkably low. It could have been so much worse. "They will not forget this," Minji said quietly. "The ones who survive, I mean. They will tell their children about the humans who left, about the golden age that ended." "Good," Jinwoo replied. "Let them remember. Let them tell the story of what happens when you mistake generosity for weakness. Maybe someday, far in the future, the galaxy will be ready to treat humanity as equals instead of resources. But not today, not for a long time." Outside the window, Earth turned slowly against the stars, blue and green and beautiful. Humanity's homeworld, peaceful and isolated once again. Around it, human colonies thrived, building a new civilization free from the galaxy's politics and exploitation. They had left the galaxy to drown in regret, and they had no intention of going back. 3 years had passed since the last human ship crossed the border into isolated space, and the galaxy had become unrecognizable. Kelrath scavenged through the ruins of what had once been a human research facility on the moon of Targus Prime. He was alone, dressed in a worn environment suit that barely kept out the cold. The facility had been abandoned for over 2 years, picked clean by other scavengers, but Kelrath kept searching. He had to believe there was something left, some piece of technology that still worked, some miracle that could save his dying civilization. He had fallen far. Once he had been trade minister, wealthy and powerful, making decisions that affected billions. Now he was just another refugee digging through garbage, hoping for scraps. The facility's lights no longer worked. His suit's lamp cast shadows across empty laboratories and stripped workstations. Anything valuable had been taken long ago. Anything that could be understood had been dismantled. What remained was the debris of a civilization the galaxy had lost. In what had once been a break room, Kelrath found something that made him stop. A drawing protected behind a cracked plastic frame still hanging on the wall. It showed crude figures that were clearly meant to be humans and aliens, holding hands beneath a yellow sun. Childish writing at the bottom read, "Friends forever," in both human script and translated into common galactic. Kelrath stared at it for a long time. Some human child had made this probably decades ago. Some human child had believed in friendship between species, had believed in a shared future. He carefully removed the frame from the wall and sat down on the dusty floor, holding it in his gloved hands. And for the first time in 3 years, Kelrath wept. He wept for his own greed and stupidity. He wept for the galaxy that could have been. He wept for all the people who had died because he and others like him had been too blind to see the treasure they possessed until it was gone. When his tears finally stopped, he carefully packed the drawing into his salvage bag. It was worthless, of course. No trade value, no practical use. But he would keep it anyway, as a reminder of what his arrogance had cost. On Earth, in the Agricultural Monitoring Center outside Beijing, Hana watched the distant catastrophe unfold through long-range sensors and automated observation posts. Her job was to monitor food production across human space, but the sensors picked up data from the former Council territories as well. The numbers were horrific. Crop failures across 70% of formerly productive worlds, famine spreading like wildfire through populations that had grown dependent on human agricultural technology, mass starvation on a scale that defied comprehension. "We have to do something," her assistant said, not for the first time. "We have the technology. We have the resources. We could save billions of lives." Hana closed her eyes, fighting the same battle she fought every day. She was not a cruel person. Watching people starve hurt her deeply, but she also understood why humanity's government had refused to intervene. "What happens if we do?" she asked quietly. "We send aid, we save lives, and then what? Do we stay forever, maintaining their farms, managing their food supply? Do we trap ourselves in the same cycle that brought us here? Or do we leave again and watch them starve when our aid runs out?" "We could teach them," her assistant insisted. "Show them how to be self-sufficient." "We tried that for 127 years, Hana replied, opening her eyes to look at the data again. They did not want to learn. They wanted us to do it for them. That was the problem. That is why we left. She pulled up footage from one of the observation posts. It showed a former agricultural world where human-designed vertical farms had fed 3 billion people. The farms were dark now. Their systems failed, their structures collapsing. In the cities below, the dead outnumbered the living. "This is terrible," Hana whispered. "But it is the consequence they chose. We gave them the tools. We offered to teach them. They refused to learn because they assumed we would always be there. Now they suffer for that assumption." Her assistant said nothing more. What was there to say? They both knew she was right, even if it felt like being right was a terrible burden to carry. Former Chancellor Vornis made his final broadcast from a deteriorating station above his homeworld. He was dying. His species was dying. His civilization had maybe a decade left before it ceased to exist entirely. The broadcast was not meant for the current generation. It was a message for whoever might find it in the future, if anyone survived to search through the ruins of this age. "My name is Vornis," he began, his voice weak and cracking. "I was Chancellor of the Galactic Council. I led 15 species in an alliance that was meant to bring peace and prosperity to the stars. Instead, I led them to ruin." He paused, struggling to breathe. The station's life support was failing, and there was no one left who knew how to repair it. "The humans came to us with open hands," he continued. "They shared technologies that we could not have dreamed of. They cured diseases that had plagued us for millennia. They gave us energy, food, and hope. They asked only to be treated as equals." Another long pause. Vornis could feel his strength fading. "We did not treat them as equals. We treated them as resources to be exploited. We took everything they offered and demanded more. When they asked for fair trade, we called them selfish. When they asked for respect, we called them arrogant. When they finally left, we called them cruel." Tears ran down his scaled face, leaving tracks through the dust. "But we were the cruel ones. We were the selfish ones. We were the arrogant ones. The humans built paradise and we destroyed it with our greed. Now we reap what we sowed." He looked directly at the camera, his eyes hollow but determined. "If anyone hears this message, learn from our mistake. Learn that those who give deserve gratitude. Learn that pride destroys civilizations faster than any weapon. Learn that kindness is not weakness, and that exploiting the generous will only leave you alone when you need help most." His breathing became labored. The recording would not last much longer. "The humans departed quietly and we drowned in regret. Remember us. Remember what we lost. Remember why we lost it. Do not repeat our failure. The transmission ended as Vornus collapsed. The station's power failed hours later. There was no one left to mourn him. Young Mira had dedicated her life to preserving the memory of the human era. She was only 20 cycles old when the humans left, barely an adult by her species' standards. But she had been fascinated by humans since childhood, had studied their history and culture with dedication that puzzled her family. Now she understood why she had been so drawn to them. They represented something her people had lost, something the entire galaxy had lost: the ability to build instead of destroy, the wisdom to share instead of hoard, the strength to walk away from toxicity rather than enabling it. She worked in a crumbling archive, one of the few places that still had partial power. Around her were fragmentary records of humanity's time in the galaxy, technical manuals that no one could understand anymore, cultural exchanges that seemed like fairy tales, trade agreements that documented the impossible generosity humans had shown. Most people thought her work was pointless. Who cared about the past when the present was a daily struggle for survival? But Mira believed the past held the key to any possible future. She had just completed her masterwork, a comprehensive history titled The Light We Extinguished. It documented everything: humanity's arrival, their contributions, the growing resentment, the equity mandate, the exodus, and the collapse that followed. She had worked on it for 3 years, interviewing survivors, collecting records, analyzing data. The book was brutal in its honesty. It spared no one, including her own species. It detailed exactly how greed, pride, and stupidity had destroyed the galaxy's golden age. It would be an uncomfortable read for anyone who had lived through those times. But comfort was not the point. Truth was the point. Mira had one copy of the book, encoded on a crystal drive that would last for millennia. She took it to the only human facility she knew of that might still be monitored, an old communications relay on the edge of human space. There, she recorded a message. "My name is Mira," she said to the camera. "I am sending you a history of what happened after you left. A complete record of our civilization's collapse and the reasons for it. I do not ask for your pity or your help. I only ask that you remember us." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "We were not worthy of what you offered. We understand that now. Though the understanding came too late, perhaps our failure can serve as a lesson. Perhaps someday, if we survive, we might become the kind of people who could stand as your equals rather than your dependents." Another pause, and then she added quietly, "We are sorry. We are so sorry." She sent the transmission and the data file toward human space, not knowing if anyone would receive it, not expecting any response. It was enough to try, to acknowledge what had been lost, to accept responsibility for the loss. Then she returned to her archive to continue her work. If her people survived the next few decades, they would need to know the truth. They would need to understand how and why their ancestors had failed. On Earth, elder statesman Taehyung received Mira's transmission in his office overlooking Lake Geneva. He was one of the last humans alive who remembered the early days of galactic contact, who had been young when humanity first joined the Council. Now he was old, his hair white, his face lined with the weight of decisions that had affected billions. He watched Mira's message 3 times, then read through the historical record she had sent. It was thorough, honest, and devastating. The young alien had done remarkable work, documenting humanity's time in the galaxy with a clarity that even human historians would struggle to match. The question was what to do with it. He called a meeting of the human government's leadership. They gathered in the assembly hall, representatives from all the major colonies, and debated long into the night. "She is asking for nothing," one representative pointed out. "Just acknowledgement. Maybe we should respond." "Any response opens a door we closed for good reason," another argued. "We left because staying was poisonous. Why would we risk going back?" Taehyung listened to both sides, understanding the merit in each argument. Finally, he spoke. "We will not go back. Not now, maybe not ever. The galaxy made its choice and we made ours. But perhaps we can acknowledge what this young scholar has done. Perhaps we can let her know that someone heard her, even if we cannot help." After more debate, they reached a consensus. A single message, brief and clear. Taehyung composed it himself. "We received your transmission and your history. We acknowledge the truth you have documented and the courage it took to send it. Humanity will not return to the galaxy at this time. The wounds are too deep and the risk is too great. But we recognize that you personally bear no blame for what your ancestors chose. Continue your work. Preserve the truth. Perhaps in a century or 2 centuries, when new generations have learned wisdom, we might speak again. He sent the message, and then archived everything. Someday, far in the future, humanity might be ready to engage with the galaxy again. But that day was not today. The galaxy continued its slow death, and humanity watched from a distance, safe in their isolation, building wonders that no alien would ever see. 50 years had passed since humanity withdrew from the galaxy, and the stars had grown quiet. Elder statesman Tae Hyung stood at the window of his retirement home on Mars, looking up at the night sky. He was very old now, one of the last humans alive who remembered the galaxy as it had been, who remembered the council chamber with its 15-member species, the bustling trade stations, the optimism of those early years. Most of that was gone now. The council had dissolved 30 years ago. Half the member species had gone extinct. The rest had regressed to pre-spaceflight technology, struggling to survive on their homeworlds with populations a fraction of what they had been. The galactic dark age had settled in, and it showed no signs of ending. Taehyung received visitors sometimes, young historians who wanted to interview him about the old days. They found it hard to believe his stories. A galaxy of thousands of civilizations connected by trade and travel, cities of billions powered by quantum reactors, medical technology that could cure any disease. To them it sounded like fantasy. They had grown up in an isolated humanity, prosperous and advanced but alone among the stars. The idea of alien civilization seemed like ancient mythology, but Taehyung remembered. He remembered walking through the council chamber as a young diplomat's assistant. He remembered alien friends he had made, good people who had welcomed humanity with genuine warmth. He remembered the slow deterioration of those relationships as jealousy and resentment grew. And he remembered Jinwoo's final stand. The moment humanity said enough was enough, a message notification pulled him from his memories. It was marked urgent, which was unusual. Very few things qualified as urgent in the quiet peace of modern human civilization. He opened it and found a transmission from the border monitoring stations. After 50 years of silence, someone from the old galaxy had made contact. The message was simple and heartbreaking. A young alien named Eris, representing something called the Remnant Coalition, was asking for permission to send a delegation to Earth. Not to ask for help, the message carefully specified, just to talk, to learn, to understand. Taehyung felt his heartache. He forwarded the message to the current government with his recommendation to at least hear what they had to say. Then he went back to watching the stars, wondering if humanity was ready for this conversation. On a small station orbiting a dying world at the edge of what had once been council space, Mira was giving her final lecture. She was elderly now, her skin wrinkled and her movements slow. The archive where she had spent her life was nearly empty. Most of her species had died in the collapse. The few who remained struggled to survive, but she still taught, still preserved, still remembered. Young Eris sat in the front row, listening with intense focus as the old scholar spoke about the human era. Eris was one of the few young people left, part of a generation born into ruin and raised on stories of a better time. "Tell me again about the end," Eris asked. "About why they left," Mira smiled sadly. She had told this story 1,000 times, but it never got easier. "The humans left because we gave them no choice," she said. "We treated their generosity as obligation. We treated their patience as weakness. We took everything they offered and demanded more. When they finally said no, we called them cruel. We learned the hardest lesson in the galaxy, that those who give freely can also choose to stop giving." She pulled up an old image on her display, one of the few that still worked. It showed the council chamber in its prime, full of life and activity, humans and aliens working together on projects that spanned the stars. "This is what we lost," Mira continued. "Not just the technology, though that was precious. Not just the prosperity, though that was wonderful. We lost the chance to build something beautiful with people who wanted to share the universe with us. We lost it because we could not overcome our own pride." Eris looked at the image with hungry eyes, trying to imagine a world so different from the ruins she had grown up in. "What is the lesson?" Eris asked. "The one you want people to remember?" Mira considered the question carefully. It was the same question she had asked herself for 50 years, through all her research and writing and teaching. "The lesson is simple," she finally said. Kindness is not weakness. Those who give deserve gratitude, not exploitation. Arrogance is the death of civilizations. The humans departed quietly, and we drowned in regret. Never forget that. Never repeat our mistake. She looked at her young student with tired but hopeful eyes. You are part of the Remnant Coalition, yes? The group trying to preserve what remains of our civilizations? Eris nodded. We are 27 worlds now. Small populations, basic technology. But we are trying to rebuild, trying to learn from the past. Good, Mira said. That is good. And you are going to Earth? If they will allow it, Eris replied. We have sent a message asking for permission to visit. Not to ask for help, but to learn, to understand, to show them that some of us remember what happened and why. Mira reached into her desk and pulled out an old crystal drive, the same one she had used to record her history 50 years ago. She had made copies over the years, but this was the original. Take this with you, she said, handing it to Eris. It is the complete history of the human era and our collapse. Everything I have learned in a lifetime of study. If the humans agree to meet with you, give it to them. Not as an apology, though we owe them that, but as proof that some of us understand, some of us learned. Eris took the crystal reverently, understanding the weight of what she was being given. Thank you, she whispered. I will represent our people well. I will make sure they know that your work mattered. Mira smiled. That is all any of us can hope for. That our work matters. That we leave something better than we found. 2 weeks later, Mira died peacefully in her sleep. Her archive was preserved by the Remnant Coalition as a historical monument. Her books were copied and distributed to every surviving settlement. Her life's work became the foundation for a new understanding of the galaxy's greatest tragedy. Captain Kyung piloted her scout ship along the border of human space, conducting a routine patrol that had become almost ceremonial over the decades. Very little came from the old galaxy anymore. The occasional automated distress beacon, still transmitting years after everyone who sent it had died. The rare refugee ship, limping along on failing systems looking for sanctuary that humanity no longer offered. Today was different. Today her sensors picked up something unusual. A small vessel, clearly alien in design, broadcasting human diplomatic codes that were 50 years old. Attached to the codes was a request for peaceful contact, signed by someone named Eris on behalf of the Remnant Coalition. Kyung reported it immediately. Within hours, she had orders to escort the vessel to a meeting station on the border, not into human space proper, but close enough for conversation. She approached the alien ship carefully. It was tiny, barely large enough for a handful of passengers, and it looked like it had been built from salvaged parts. That it had made the journey at all was impressive. Alien vessel, she transmitted. This is Captain Kyung of the Human Border Patrol. I am authorized to escort you to a meeting point. Please follow my ship and make no sudden movements. The response came quickly, the voice young and nervous. Thank you, Captain. We will comply. We are grateful for this opportunity. Kyung studied the alien ship as she led it toward the meeting station. These people had traveled for months, maybe years, across a dangerous galaxy, just for a chance to talk. They must be desperate, or perhaps just determined. Either way, it was no longer her problem. She would escort them to the station and let the diplomats handle it from there. At the meeting station, a delegation of human officials waited in a conference room that had not been used in decades. Taehyung was among them, brought out of retirement for this historic moment. He sat at the table, his old hands folded, wondering what these aliens would say. The door opened and 3 aliens entered. They looked malnourished and exhausted, wearing clothes that had been patched many times. The leader, a young female who identified herself as Eris, carried herself with dignity despite her obvious poverty. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us, Eris said, her voice steady despite what must have been incredible nervousness. We know we have no right to ask anything of humanity. We know what our ancestors did. We know why you left. She placed a crystal drive on the table between them. This is a complete history of the collapse, documented by a scholar named Mira who spent her life trying to understand what happened. She wanted you to know that some of us learned. Some of us understand. Taehyung picked up the crystal, feeling its weight. 50 years of scholarship condensed into this small object. Why are you here? He asked gently. What do you hope to gain from this meeting? Eris met his eyes directly. We are here to acknowledge the truth, to admit that our ancestors were wrong, to show you that we understand why you left and that we do not blame you for staying away. We are not asking for help or technology or anything else. We are just asking you to know that we remember, that we learned, that we will teach our children the lesson our parents refused to learn. One of the human diplomats leaned forward. And what lesson is that? That kindness is not weakness, Eris replied. That those who give deserve gratitude. That arrogance destroys civilizations. That the humans departed quietly and we drowned in regret. Silence filled the room. Taehyung felt tears prick his eyes. After 50 years, someone finally understood. We will not ask humanity to return, Eris continued. We will not beg for technology or aid. We know we are not worthy of either. But perhaps someday, if we prove ourselves, if we build something better than what our ancestors destroyed, perhaps we might speak again, as equals, as friends, the way it should have been from the beginning. The meeting lasted for hours. The humans listened as Eris described the remnant coalition, the small group of surviving civilizations trying to rebuild without repeating the mistakes of the past. They talked about Mira and her work, about the lessons learned in blood and suffering, about hope for a distant future. When it ended, Taehyung walked Eris to her ship personally. What will you do now, he asked. Return home, Eris said. Continue building. Continue teaching. Continue hoping that someday, maybe in a century or two, humanity might give the galaxy another chance. Maybe, Taehyung said quietly. But not soon. The wounds run too deep. The memories are too painful. We understand, Eris replied. We will wait. We will prove ourselves worthy. And if we fail, if we cannot build something better, then we will accept that some chances do not come twice. She boarded her ship and departed, carrying with her the knowledge that humanity had listened, even if they had not forgiven. Taehyung watched the ship disappear into the darkness of space. Then he returned to Earth one final time, his life's journey complete. The galaxy remained broken. The throne of galactic leadership remained empty. Humanity remained isolated, building wonders in their own space. But perhaps in some distant future, new generations might find a way forward that the old generations had destroyed. Perhaps wisdom would eventually replace arrogance. Perhaps respect would eventually replace exploitation. Perhaps, but not today. Today the stars remained quiet and humanity remained alone, neither cruel nor kind, just careful. The galaxy had made its choice 50 years ago. Now it lived with the consequences.